Yep.
Do you have everyone, James?
Yeah.
I think we can open and
Okay.
then,
Oh, this is from last
wait
week.
for
Yeah,
John
this is who we have
for the
for
formal
today.
proceedings.
Yes.
All right, Heather, you're on.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Douglas School Committee to order at 4:01 on May 20th with a roll call vote for who's here from school committee. Heather Moran, present.
Julia Lagerholm, present.
Thank you so much, and turning it over to Greg or Dr. Vera, please.
Just before we start, I want to introduce everyone to Julia Lagerholm. She is our new school committee member. We did our reorganization on Wednesday night of all of our subcommittees, and Beth decided to step down from negotiation, and Julia willingly accepted, so she will be our new member on our team going forward. With that said, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Thank you.
We can introduce ourselves.
Oh, and introduce you.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, I forgot that part.
Yeah, oh, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
Douglas Elementary School.
James Kobialka, MTA representative.
John Appelquin, Douglas Middle School.
Nicole Dagnall, I'm at the Douglas Primary School.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's a good call. So we were hoping that we could start with responses to our proposals.
Sure. I know we're expecting a wage proposal from you all today. Do you have that prepared as?
We do have a proposal for you.
So we're happy to. We've got a bunch. Yeah. Should be more than enough for committee and folks who are in the stands. Thanks for meeting today. Today is one of our meetings that ended up rescheduled. I think we had tried the 23rd and it couldn't work. Unfortunately, other folks who are silent reps have said that Mondays are just difficult for them. So we'll have some people tuning in from home, I hope. But we have pretty comprehensive counters, or at least a selection of counters. Kind of as we've discussed a lot of things, really, we sort of need to await wages. We've reformatted the responses for this time. We had just some trouble kind of going through the back and forths in the last document. So this one, it doesn't capture the full back and forth of the proposals, but at least captures, I believe, accurately sort of where we are right now. So I'm not going to necessarily go through every one of these. There are some that are just still outstanding that we'll have to wait for responses on, but I'll sort of hit the big ones.
Thank you.
So, starting with the first page, the first 2 pages actually are essentially the safety proposals that we have made so far. 1, 2, and 3 being the big ones. The district has rejected almost all of these proposals. Our first proposal, 1A, we propose sort of 3 parts: injury reporting protocol, that staff won't lose sick time for medical injury emergency services during work, and that the district shall keep an injury log for discussion. The district rejected 2/3 of that and countered regarding the emergency medical piece. So we don't have sort of more back and forth on that yet. The next one, 1B, the district rejected our request for 90-day support on workers' compensation. We've discussed that repeatedly. We're countering, and in this case, we've modified the language from what we had originally proposed to almost exactly what is in the teacher's contract. Again, just like with the teachers, if someone in this unit receives workers' compensation due to an injury that happens at work, 40 or 50% of a paraprofessional wage just is not enough to live off of. So we've tried to bring the language again more in line with what the teacher unit has, which is that they would receive a salary makeup or a wage makeup for no more than 3 months, and we are proposing that. 1C was our proposal for reimbursement for items broken during damage, if they were damaged during work. The district had countered that a few times with language to the extent of reimbursement will only be made for personal property destroyed due to an unintentional physical act by a student.
Excuse me.
Salute. Unfortunately, we know that students who are dysregulated it'd be hard to sort of determine whether someone was acting intentionally or unintentionally. We don't want to sort of get into those details. So we tried to expand the language a little bit while still being sensitive to the district's concerns that, this reimbursement clause won't, for example, cover someone if they accidentally drop their cell phone in a toilet, right? If you drop your phone in a toilet, that's on you, you should get it fixed. This is really designed to, if it's your glasses are broken, your clothes are broken, your phone is broken during the course of your work. So our proposed language here is that the committee will reimburse a staff member for the fair market cost to replace or repair any clothing or other personal property damaged or destroyed in the course of their workday on district property as a result of an unintended physical act from a student or other circumstance deriving from their normal work duties. When reporting the incident as detailed above, staff will provide documentation regarding the damaged item, which the district shall review to determine reimbursement at a fair market rate as determined by the superintendent. Again, it really seems that the goals of the parties are kind of aligned here, that we want it to be that within a reasonable circumstance, someone does get a reimbursement, and the most common one that we've sort of heard from staff are glasses, especially being broken by students. So we're trying to work that language out here. For 1D, this is another one that the district has rejected repeatedly that we are once again trying to repropose. Staff can take up to an hour of time under what is called the Small Necessities Leave Act. The Small Necessities Leave Act is for minor things that can't be scheduled otherwise. Currently, the district gets to decide if someone who takes that act, takes that time, takes it without pay, or if they have to use a benefit hour from their sick time, or some of their personal time. As we've discussed a lot, with this group, the challenge is that people work hourly, and they rarely get to work their full 35 hours a week due to just the way the school schedule works. So if someone needs to take an hour of unpaid time for a doctor's appointment to get to their kid's IEP or something like that, if we don't have annualized wages, staff really do need to be able to say, like, I want to take this time unpaid so that I can save up my personal hour for another time or something like that.
Just real quick, James, I don't know if, Greg, you can clarify. Is it the law that the employer decides, or is it a local decision under the Small Leave Necessity Act? I don't know if you, Matt, or James, if you know.
It's a local decision, but it falls out your discretion unless we bargain otherwise. So currently, there were people, I think, this year who tried to take an hour without pay. They were told that they had to use their benefit time instead, and that was a hardship for them. The district has rejected the next chunk. They rejected our request to put in the contract that the district will notify staff if there's a facilities issue, that the district will ensure that workplaces are tested for environmental hazards, and that staff members shall report any environmental hazards to administration. The district also rejected preemptively providing PPE and considering PPE requests for staff, and just countered with this idea that the district will provide it, and that staff are required to wear the PPE while they're working with students. We don't have a full counter to this yet, again, because of issues as we've sort of discussed. Currently, there is some PPE that's been provided to people that just doesn't fit them, like shin guards that don't fully fit adults, or a chest protector that doesn't actually fit the person who's trying to wear it. It is just continues to be difficult to determine what will satisfy the unit, because again, folks are really looking for safety language. And the district has sort of rejected almost everything without comment, or just saying that it's sort of managerial authority here. So again, if it's something that we can discuss today, if there's a place where we can meet on this, we continue to look for language that will let people feel safe and know the policies in the district. And staff continue not to have access to that in a easy manner. Yeah. For A and B were about the wages. They were on hold. So I'll skip ahead to 6A. 6A is the sick bank language. The district provided a counter. We have a counter which is attached to as the last 2 pages. I won't, again, we don't have to go through all of that right now, but just to highlight a couple things on those last 2 pages in the sick leave bank. The sort of first piece of that is a question of who will actually organize and run the sick leave bank. Bargaining for this actually originally started in 2022. The union and the district got close to an agreement at that point, and for some reason was never ratified, right? So 2 years later, we're still trying to get this benefit in place. 2 is sort of a compromise proposal for what the sick leave bank committee will look like. It'll have 2 members of the association and 2 members of the administration who will review any requests for the sick leave bank. And then should the committee reach a tied vote, which would essentially be a 2 yes and 2 no on whether or not someone would receive these benefits, then the school committee chair would come in as the 5th voting member to sort of be a tiebreaker. Down to C, we are interested in, generally speaking, that the sick leave bank be limited to 1 sick leave day per member per school year. And that should say unit member, not DESPA member in C. With the understanding that when someone leaves a district, they can donate days. And in the first year, we're requesting A, that any member can donate up to 10 days at their discretion, and B, that the district shall match the contribution of the first 40 days. We've requested repeatedly, and the district has denied the request to kind of help put in days to essentially make up for a 2-year delay in getting this started. So this isn't just asking for free days from the district, it's asking that the district match those first 40 days. As we've looked at the sick leave balance, there's close to a dozen staff who only have 0 or 1 sick days. There's 6 or 7 who have over 40 sick days and may be able to support this, but a lot of staff just sort of falls in the middle. People end up using their days a lot. And then the rest of this is very similar to sort of what we have talked about otherwise. One small thing that I want to make, just in case it comes up anywhere else, is that in some of the proposals from the district, you use the phrase DESPA member as an indicator for who's eligible for anything. We've been shifting that to unit member. We have the obligation to provide the same benefits to any staff person, whether they're a union member or not. So I just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page there. I think that's probably just an editorial thing, but you know, we don't think the district's intending to propose that people who are members of the union get different benefits than people who are not. We just wanted to really clarify that.
I got you. Thank you.
Cool. All right, so back to this big, beautiful spreadsheet. Proposal number 7 was regarding substitution.
James, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Any other sort of material changes to the sick leave bank, or were those that you just highlighted them?
Those are the main ones, and then just in number 2, that enrollment would be automatic unless people opt out. So a lot of sick banks are moving towards this language where when someone is hired, they just automatically get enrolled into the bank unless they decide not to. I've been in this role for 6 years at this point, and I've seen dozens of people saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to sign up for the sick bank. Please let me join retroactively. But I've not yet encountered anyone saying, remove me from the bank. I never wanted to do it, right? So this is just kind of to make sure everybody gets the benefit that's accessible to them. So down to number 7, a little bit back and forth on the last proposal from the district regarding substitution. And again, the unit really values being paid by the hour for when they're covering as a substitute. Currently, people work for half a day, and they're supposed to get some amount of payment. And we're finding that staff end up working for just under half a day and don't get any payment. Last time, the district proposed that people only get paid if they substitute for 2 hours, and anything under 2 hours wouldn't include a payment. So we don't think that that's appropriate. But we also heard the district's concern that, someone shouldn't be asking for sub pay if they're just kind of like ducking in to cover a classroom so that a teacher can go to a bathroom or answer a call from the office or something like that. So our counter proposal here in number 7 is that staff will be compensated at $14 per hour or $3.50 per quarter hour for the time spent as a substitute. As a substitute, they won't be responsible for designing curriculum or assessments. And substituting for under 20 minutes in a day, such as relieving staff for short necessities, shall not trigger this provision. So again, short step-in coverage, fine. But if someone's really substituting for half a period or a whole period or whatever it may be, they should be getting compensated for that. For number 8, we don't have a response to this yet. We have this proposal that discipline shall be conducted progressively and not in public. And just
Those are two separate things, right?
yes.
Okay.
You're on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on
Oh,
this one.
sorry.
Yeah, and it's just,
I jumped ahead.
yeah, the discipline, we're working on a sort of more formal language counter here. But I don't know, John, if you wanted to talk about a couple of the discipline things that have come up lately that just seem to be stemming from lack of communication, frankly.
Yeah.
Just before, just again, just want to be very, very cautious and careful, and I know you are, John. If we're talking about staff discipline, we're on a live mic, we're in a public forum, we need to
Yep.
be very, very careful in not identifying any staff members or any students.
We're aware of
Okay.
all of our members' rights and,
Yep,
yeah.
And student rights as well.
yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I've had the unfortunateness to represent 2 separate unit members in the last 2 weeks. And I believe in both of these issues that my interpretation of the interviews, as I was allowed to be involved in, is that in both cases, the district was responsible. I feel that due to the lack of training, choices that were made by the district that affected not only the para, but affected the student as well, that should have
A
been.
point of order here. How the district conducts its businesses and its investigations are not a point of negotiation.
This is, you don't get to censure our speech here, Paul. This
No,
is,
but he does get to push back if we're bumping up
We're
against a
bumping up
personnel
against
matter, which we're
personnel
absolutely
matters is
doing.
not subject to
Don't call it a
negotiation.
point of order then,
Then
that's fine.
Call it
but-
whatever you want, James.
But I think the point is still taken, right? It's personnel, and it should remain personnel. It's not something that we should
And
be
we're,
discussing.
and we're coming back to the proposal.
Well, why don't you just come back to the
Come
proposal?
to the
then?
proposal. Because if a member of my staff conducted an investigation incorrectly, this is not the forum to discuss that.
I wasn't saying that they were conducting the investigation incorrectly.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if training had been in place, if other decisions before this had been in place, these circumstances would not have happened.
You're entitled to your opinion. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. The other, that was one of them. The second one that I have, this individual was hired within the last month or so. I'm not even sure at this point.
But, John, may I just interrupt? If you're going to go to the same larger point that you disagreed with the decision or a process
Fine.
made by, then you've already made that point. We don't
Okay.
need to get into which personnel.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, if I can't do it that way, then let me do it this way. To ensure that discipline is conducted progressively and not in public. And the district rejected that. Where is our discipline protocol? How does our discipline protocol work?
So progressive discipline can be anything from a verbal reprimand.
You've rejected progressive discipline. How does it go in
No,
the
let me-
district
let me-
currently?
We did not reject progressive discipline is the law, and you have the right to grieve if you feel that progressive discipline has not been followed.
So
there's
when
no
you're-
need-
so just to be
let
clear,
me
in your
finish.
mind- in
No,
your
let
mind-
me
no,
finish.
this is
No, let me
important,
finish. So
Paul.
there's no need to
Paul,
quantify
Paul.
it, there's no need to
Just hold
quantify
up, hold
it
up.
in the contract, because you have the ability, if what you feel should be a written reprimand progresses up and there's nothing in the file to termination, you might have, depending on the incident, the ability to grieve it. So there's no need for that in the contract.
So the official point of view of the Douglas Public Schools is that progressive discipline is the law, which it follows correctly, and that this unit has the right to grieve it whenever appropriate.
Grieve almost anything.
And progressive discipline is part of the current Douglas Public Schools
Agreed.
discipline policy.
We've always done progressive discipline, James.
So your rejection of that was because currently progressive discipline is what you do.
When appropriate, correct.
If it's the law, it's not when appropriate. If it's the law, you follow progressive discipline.
Well, again, you're using semantics and words here to trap me into a corner, James. So obviously, if there's something from, for instance, a staff member being late 3 times to work, progressive discipline in that one incident would not result in termination. A staff member being convicted of, let's just say, a felony charge, we're not going to do a verbal reprimand for that. So that would be progressive discipline in that stance.
Right. So it sounds like that's overall a yes, that progressive discipline is the district's current policy.
We've always done.
That is great to hear.
But glad to hear it. It's always nice when we can agree.
Yes. Curious why that wasn't brought up with the repeated rejection of this before, but I'll take it. It's on the same kind of vein as all this health stuff we've been talking about, right? Which is, again, that we need to have it somewhere to refer to, but thank you for that clarification. We have a tentative agreement on number 11, personal day language. School committee.
Nothing for 9 and 10?
Nothing new, nope.
Okay.
For 10, you had rejected letting staff know the details of a support plan before working with the student on a support plan. For 12, you rejected clarifying that staff can request that their administrator remove someone from the building if they are, remove someone from the class if they're being non-compliant.
May I ask a question? Sorry, I wanted to go back
Go ahead.
just because I was going chronologically. I'm going back to 9B. So there was a counter from the district on
Yep.
and one of the sort of things that you've been identifying, Jonna just did it, is, the idea that there has been a lack of training, which feeds into some of the issues. So what's the issue if there's yearly training for staff on bus duty?
What is the
counter.
time constraint for this? It was actually going to come up later because it was a district proposal, but that's the same as your response to
Yeah, we stated-
District 1A. You had said potentially 2 6-hour days, but we hadn't gotten confirmation since, I believe, March 18th.
Correct, it would be 2 to 3 days prior to the week before school starting of about 6 hours. I think Dr. Rosenthal spoke a little bit to what that would look like.
So would it be 2 or 3? Because, again, we're talking about hourly staff. It's a big difference of a day.
Depends on what we end up doing for professional development. Could be 2, could be 3, could be 4.
So will this be optional or mandatory?
It's obviously, it would have to be optional.
Okay. So we're looking for more clarity about that?
And
What clarity are you looking for?
Yeah, on what?
We're gonna
What-
pro-
Go ahead. I'll stop.
So one of the discipline issues which occurred on a bus. We've talked about the need for additional training and support for staff who are doing bus duty. A optional training of 2 to 3 days is not something that the union can even really consider. Because, A, if you're on bus duty and this is solving that issue, it should be a mandatory training for those folks.
Can I just?
And then, no, let me finish for a second, I don't want to lose this train of thought. And then B, when you are taking people who are hourly workers, the majority of which who are working a second or third job in addition to a summer job, it is incredibly hard for folks to be able to consider, do I maybe have maybe 2 or 3 or 4 days prior to the start of the school year? There's too many ifs there. If the district's saying, and this is not a proposal, it's just an example, if the district says anyone who wants to work bus duty has to do 2 days of training at the beginning of the year, we can work with that. But having it up in the air like that without a minimum or a maximum doesn't allow members to actually engage with it, especially when their school might be happening, their children might be going to a school that starts earlier or starts later, they might need to figure out childcare on those days, like we need specifics for days of work.
Well, as you see, we countered that on March 18th, which I believe is over 2 months ago, so we welcome a counter to what we submitted 2 months ago.
Mhm.
on that.
Right, and we requested at that time specific dates and times, and you said maybe 2 6-hour days. We're looping back to that request that we made on the 18th for specificity, and it sounds like it's not here yet.
And again, until we have an official counter from you, we'd love to get you more information.
So, I mean, I guess, I won't say that out loud. We can talk about that in the other room. Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Greg, you had a question?
No, I'll hold on for now. Thanks.
And to your number 12, we did not reject administrators removing children who are at risk to themselves or others in classrooms. The part we did reject was denying a student FAPE by stating the only way they could return to school or to class was to have a mandatory meeting. That's the part of that proposal we've rejected, denying student their rights.
Okay, let's go back to that one then. So this was proposal 12. So the full proposal had multiple parts. Are you saying that you're only rejecting the part relevant to a return?
I have to go back and check all my notes. Again, that was almost 6 weeks ago, but the part that you said that we were rejecting new language about removing a student not to be allowed
Yep.
in class or programs. You left out the part about holding a meeting between parties before a student can return to class.
That's right there.
But it wasn't said verbally. People at home can't
Yeah, you're right.
see what you...
So you rejected both of those pieces.
We're rejecting the part that denies kids FAPE. If you want to reword it somewhere else, happy to look at it, but we're not going to deny a kid FAPE.
So we had, again in there, that if there is a physical assault, and we discussed this pretty significantly, that there will be a meeting between the staff member, the parent, and administrator to determine the consequences for student misconduct and support and prevent future issues. So you did deny that in addition to the overall piece. And
if you
as
wanna
of
do-
right now, there is not a clear
I'll counter.
response there. I would appreciate if you just stop saying to counter. The district has rejected outright almost everything the union has proposed. And if we were to be taking the same strategy as the district, we would just be rejecting these rejections outright. We're really attempting to get to a place where we can figure out language that keeps staff and students safe. And we have gotten nothing from the district on that. The only thing that the district has agreed to is something which already exists as necessary, which is an occasional meeting between union and administration. So, heard, some feedback would help.
But I just want to chime in on that, James, because I do think it's worth noting that we've discussed staff and student issues for 3 or 4 sessions.
Yep.
And we've provided a whole load of information, as anyone who's been watching would know, and provided, particularly last time, all sorts of mechanisms that are already in place to address the concerns that have been raised. So I just don't want to let go the idea that it's, something that the district is just rejecting and refusing to engage upon, because that is belied by the dialogue that the district has been very much engaged in over the past 3 or 4, however many sessions.
How many of those are going in the contract for this unit?
Right, two different things though, right? We can agree to disagree on what belongs in the contract, but we can also engage and discuss the issue. And the latter doesn't mean that there necessarily should be the former.
You've made that point repeatedly. We don't think it's valid.
Right, but I have to make that point repeatedly because when you assert that we're not doing anything about it, I have to push back to say, wait a minute, we've had this discussion.
I would
That
like
can't
you
go
to
unchecked.
find in any of the videos of any of these meetings where anyone on this side of the table has said that you are not doing anything. We have not said that. We continue to not say that. We continue to appreciate
I
a
appreciate
lot
that.
of the
No,
things
thank
that the
you.
district are doing.
Thank you.
And we also need to flag that none of them are what the members of this unit defined as what would be the most effective for them. Those are two truths.
Right, and thank you. And we can respectfully disagree, and I think continue on what belongs in the contract as a result.
See, the problem with this contract is the wording in the existing contract has been used against us again and again and again and again and again for the last 3 years. What I've learned over the last 3 years is if it's not in our contract, word for word, we're not going to be protected. Repeatedly, over the last 3 years, I have had this contract tossed at me. The wording of it. I am trying to look out for the members of this district. And you want to call it a managerial directive. It's a managerial directive that obviously isn't working for the staff if we're that concerned about it. We need to come up with some language. Somehow, somewhere, I don't know what you want to call it, but we need to come up with some kind of language somehow.
I say this completely respectfully, Jonna. The beginning part of what you just said, those kind of broad strokes generalizations, makes it really hard to respond, right? Because
Do not play that card, please.
no.
When you're rejecting these things out, and you're talking to
think
the
you're missing-
president of a union who's giving her 3 years of feedback to the people who enforce the contract, and you're saying it's,
I think you're missing the point that I'm trying to
Broad?
make, which is that things like the contract being thrown at me, that sort of a statement, right, is much different than what we clearly have had as a much more granular discussion about health and safety issues, right? Two very different things. So and the point I'm trying to make is, and I don't even know if that statement was intended for the health and safety discussion that we've been having, but that's why it's difficult to hear something like that and know kind of what the intent is, because we've been having a really engaged discussion on
Look,
the health and safety.
When we created our first contract, this was our first contract. And we were trying to just find guidelines for everyone to work with. Then over the course of the 3 years, we had a very open-ended, cohesive contract. And then over the course of the last 3 years, I repeatedly have heard, I'm sorry, John, we can't address that, that's not in your contract. I'm sorry, John, that's not the wording in your contract. I'm sorry, John, we can't do that, that's not the wording in your contract. So what's been blatantly expressed to me over the course of the 3 years is that if it's not in the contract, it doesn't matter. Or it's not important enough. Thus, why the health and safety has become so important. And the health and safety this is for the better of the staff, and it's for the better of the students as well. And when I say thrown at me, I mean, I have a para saying, Donna, I worked a half a day, and they're saying that I can't get paid. Well, why are they saying you can't get paid? Because it's not consecutive. Well, consecutive is not in our contract wording. It's not there. It's not. They should get paid. They work 3.5 hours subbing. They should get $12.50 for the day. Because they subbed for 3.5 hours. Maybe it wasn't consecutive, but they did it. So it is important. And I don't know where the wording
It's not
is.
important, that's why we're here, I get that.
Let's continue.
Well, I don't know that you do, because you keep rejecting everything that we put out there. And I don't know that you are getting it, or you are understanding. And we can agree to disagree all we want, but we need to come up with some language somewhere, somehow. And I don't know where it is, to be honest. I've researched, I've looked, I don't know. I really don't know.
That's why we're trying this. It's also worth noting that some of the stuff, like last time Courtney brought up that everyone in the district was aware of that if an injury occurred, the Maya injury report, accident report form was supposed to be filled out, and that there was supposed to be something coming from central office to remind everyone. Some principals sent out a reminder at the bottom of their newsletter. To my knowledge, no central sort of reminder from central office came out to all staff about this. We still have staff who, as we're talking to, are saying that they're hearing about this for the first time. Even if we go back 4 or 5 meetings ago when we first talked about injury, that didn't come up at that point. Something as simple as what you do if you're hurt should not be something that people are digging through policy manuals or newsletters to find. So, again, that is what we're really trying to do here. And to speak to the granularity, Greg, all of these sort of granular proposals came out of the last 3 years of discussions, which is why flat rejections without any contractual way to fix these issues continues to just be really difficult for the bargaining team and for the membership to deal with. So, move on to 14A,
Can I ask a question?
please.
What is missing in the dialogue? So I can imagine a regime where you collect a lot of information and the people who are hurt or injured are reporting it faithfully.
Yep.
But there still could be something missing, right? Because there's no analysis or narrative created as to root causes or trends that are noticed. Is
Yes.
that what you're saying is missing?
Yes, both of those pieces.
Is that all of it or only part of it?
I would say that's the majority of it. So.
We implemented an incident form after our conversations, and we didn't wait to the end of negotiations for it, because you brought that up. It was a valid point. We went back and reflected and spoke about it. And after an incident happens, we now have a form that was generated by Dr. Rosenthal, and we looked at it for staff members and building leadership to get together to look at those root cause analysis and to look at that antecedent behavior to try to solve the issue. So that was a suggestion that came out of these negotiations, and I believe
Sort
we
of.
implemented it.
Sort of, yeah, because we discussed that, right?
Yep.
So what we requested was standard injury reporting form, that the district is keeping track of it, is gathering information, and then that monthly, there is a meeting between administration and the union to analyze any of these issues and fix them as necessary. And then we also included that in the PPE language, this idea that if there was an incident when someone was injured and they would get, that the district or the district and the union would take a look at what happened and see if maybe a new kind of PPE or something else could fix that moving forward.
And I believe that's all in that form, James, that we submitted.
So, let's be clear, you rejected that proposal, you implemented a form that was not designed with any staff input. We requested to bargain over that form because we were in the sense that it was a mandatory form, which made sense, and we thought, wow, that's a great idea. Maybe 2 sessions ago, we proposed a way to streamline it to make it easier. You rejected that, and then you also said that the form was for administrative use only in review of the incident and not a requirement for a staff member. You had said that it was not a requirement, so we did not have to bargain over it at the table. It was just something administration would use. So you did create this form. You did begin to use it, and then you also denied the union's request to bargain over the specifics of it or to codify it in the contract. So, you know, like we said that time, it's a step in the right direction, but since it's still an unknown that members had no chance to really work on, and it's not even mandatory because it's an administrative tool, that still kind of leaves a lot of these questions up in the air about how are we going to analyze the data.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Yeah,
So that form is a multidisciplinary form, which is not just for pairs and ABAs to
Yeah.
use. BCBAs, special education teachers, OTs, PTs, speech and language pathologists, everyone who's part of that child's team should be having some input in that.
yeah,
So that was the purpose of that form. There is a lot in that form. I think one of our meetings, you said it was very time-consuming. So with that component of that, having the multidisciplinary team talk it over and the multiple voices in it, it has to be a lengthy kind
Yeah.
of form. And also, the purpose of that form is to avoid future behaviors, which is why triggers and signals are also in the form that we provided. You guys removed that. And that's one of the things that is, it's instrumental in determining a student's ability to communicate wants and needs.
sorry. I don't think saying that we removed anything is really accurate. We brought a suggestion to the table, and the district said that they weren't interested in discussing it. If you all are interested in discussing this form, we still think it's a good idea, but with an hourly staff who are not getting release time to go to meetings about their students, the amount of time it takes is a real concern. And we would love to discuss that. And if the district is interested in it, like, please let us know, because it really would solve a lot of the issues that we're discussing. But we've just heard repeated no's from your side of the table about this. So I don't know if you can address that now, or if that's something for after caucus, but
After caucus will be fine.
yeah, something like this form with like clarification about how it's going to be used and how people are going to have time during their days to fill it out and then be part of the support conversation would hit a ton of what we've been discussing.
So to paraphrase what you're saying, you might be willing to bargain a process and not an output.
Sure. And I mean, again, like, the overall concern that we brought forth is that we don't feel, to our knowledge, the district does not have a complete picture of injuries that occur to staff specifically and why. We hope that the district has more information about student injuries and is working on that, but that's outside of the wheelhouse of this group, right? So all the great work the administration's doing on the administrative level, beautiful. But for the folks on the ground in this unit, the big concern is making sure that we're tracking and alleviating issues and that the staff feel safe and that the students feel safer. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Anything else on that one?
Not for me, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, we'd love to talk about that. It also, I think, would align really well with those OSHA suggestions that we sent you guys a couple weeks ago, but. Okay, 14A, you had rejected our request to put this sort of official stipend language in based on the fact that we used the word shall, that we said that someone who is in a relevant position shall have a reduced workload. We've modified that and we're countering here. Unit members shall have access to stipend petitions which are contained in the Douglas Teachers Association contract, Appendix C, at equivalent rates of pay. Again, that already happens right now, we're just putting it in the contract. This is the different part. If a unit member is placed into a stipend position which may include a reduction in teaching load, their workload may be similarly reduced up to the noted amount without loss of hourly pay. Gets rid of the shall. It's basically equivalent to the educator contract, the teacher contract, which says, athletic director may have, up to a 50% reduction or something to do, 60% to do their duties.
40.
Holding on the next couple. We had put in for this idea of monthly labor management meetings in 15B. The district responded with a, if necessary, monthly meeting. We do not have a calendar for that at this point because we feel that it is linked into the larger conversation specifically about safety. But I will say that we are generally supportive of the idea of having this, if necessary, language in the contract.
The only if necessary, the monthly meetings still happen building-based. So those are happening, I don't know if I put in, if we had a weekly or.
You just said a formal structure. You said that a monthly was not, was too restrictive, and you guys proposed just that there would be some sort of formal, regularly
Building
scheduled
representatives
meetings.
and the building principal for regularly scheduled meetings, so not if necessary, for regularly scheduled meetings.
Yes, yeah, you're right. If necessary, it's only for decibel leadership and the super.
Correct, because if we're talking about building-based issues, it should be between the principal and the people who are there.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, you all had held on 15C. You had countered on 16, and we do not have a response on that. It's pending conversation about the new management system. We also have a counter for the duration. The original demand to bargain had the incorrect duration, so this should match the contract appropriately. The agreement would be from August 30th, 2024 through and including August 29, 2027. For 18A, we requested a posting for summer positions between February and May 1. Based on the conversation we had last time, it seemed that that was just not an appropriate timeline. We're putting a counter out with between April 1 and May 30, that the district shall post openings for their summer program. Pretty much the same as last time, except a new time frame. Again, if the district feels another time frame is appropriate, please provide that in a counter. We're just really trying to give people the chance to plan their summer and know when these positions are going to come out and whether or not they'll have a chance to work them. 18B, we have a TA.
I think Greg, in that meeting, stated that it should state through a list of qualified and
Yeah, not.
certified, I forget what the exact.
Yeah, we did have that.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? You guys remember that?
We did discuss that,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That's right,
Yeah.
good catch.
Yep, I don't think that made it through in the
Yeah.
There's a lot of papers going
written
on.
pages, yeah. Yeah, so we can
Yeah.
hit that, let's just make a note that that's pending a small language adjustment.
Yep.
18C, we're holding for wages. 19, I don't know if this was just missed by accident, that wasn't in your last response, it was that personal days may be taken in half-day increments. And then for 20, we are reproposing the idea that staff who have significantly more students, in this case over 100, receive an additional stipend for their work. Currently, that would only apply to the Academic Development Center and library paras. We're reproposing it with $2,800 per year instead of $3,000. We had heard rumors prior to the last session that those positions were going to be modified next year, and you had said that that's not going to occur. So, we're kind of in this same philosophical place. Those two positions just work with significantly more students and essentially run classrooms and have a more executive authority than the other paraprofessionals in this unit. So we're proposing that they receive a stipend for that. let's see, the next one is the one that we discussed previously, that we're still,
Can I just touch base on that?
Excuse me.
yeah.
Because I've had some clarity from, we offered that because we realized that prior to this contract going into place 3 years ago, paras did not attend staff meetings, it was my understanding. Paras did not go to professional development, and that's been changed with paras going to PD before school starts in October and in January. We also have staff, paras and ABAs attending our staff meetings if they want and compensating them for it. You brought up a great point that, and then I think was it this year or last year, we started paras and our ABAs going to new teacher, new staff orientation. We added that in there as well too, and compensating them for that. Forget if it was this year or last year. We get that we want to train you before you come inside as new paras. In terms of the days and the length, I think you asked us for the length, and we said it would be a full day. We need time, and we need to look at, what does that look? It could be 2 days, could be 3 days, could be 4 days. Depends on what we're going to do for professional development. I know we talked about doing it for bus monitors. I know we talked about doing it for, our inclusion specialists and our paras who work in our sub-separate population. We may include CPIE training in that, we're not. We still haven't flushed that out. Typically, for all of our professional development that we do, even new teacher orientation, we haven't published a date for that yet, and we probably won't do it until end of June, beginning of July. So in terms of how many dates, we don't know. We would need to develop it. We might do 2 days this year, James, and get feedback and say, let's add a third to do this, and we'd be happy to do that. But we haven't pinned down how many days it is because we haven't developed the professional development yet. But to your point, I also understand that people need to plan. We wouldn't spring it on them 2 weeks before it happened, but we'll probably have a clear idea of what this looks like end of June, beginning of July.
Well, and this is kind of where, I think there's almost 3 separate things we're talking about. at the
Maybe
same
5 or 6, yeah, I get it.
One of them is this idea of training for like specific things that we've raised, like folks on the bus, right? If it's something that's mandatory because of the work that you're doing, you should have as much notice as possible. The second piece is one that's already in the contract, that new staff will come in for 2 extra days. Like that's kind of a given.
Yep.
But then the third one that we really do need clarity on is for current staff, what is the expectation for end of summer training, right? And that's where, again, if you're saying 2 to 4 days the week prior to school, even something like that is something that I think we could engage with, but just some number of days, some amount of time before the start of school.
It would be the week before school, so when does school start? Anyone have a calendar? Monday the 26th? So 26 minus 9 is 19? 26 minus 7 is what? What's that previous Monday? The 19th?
yeah.
So it would be that week of the 19th, 2 to 4 days sometime that week.
And those would be optional, mandatory?
Can't mandate everyone to come in, but we would compensate those people who come in.
And then, going back to this idea of like someone who's a bus monitor needing the bus training, if they miss those days in the summer, how would they make up that necessary training?
And we could flush that out with Dr. Rosenthal and do that.
Okay. Yeah, and those are why we don't have a formal response there. All right, the next one, the district proposed adding 3 paid holidays, Labor Day, President's Day, and Patriots' Day. We're countering with adding 20 paid holidays to the contract. Sounds like a lot, but there's a couple reasons for this. So first, the district has repeatedly rejected our request for annualized pay. If that changes today, that's great, and maybe this will change. But without annualized pay, where people just kind of have their pay broken up over the school year, what happens for this unit is that the times when perhaps they might need the most extra cash, like right around the holidays, they get paychecks that are almost empty. They don't get paid for the days of winter vacation except for Christmas Day and New Year's Day. They don't currently get paid for February break, for April break. Those are all zero paychecks. So what this would do would add 20 paid holidays, 5 of which would be used in that winter break, New Year's break, to give people a paycheck. 5 that would be used during February break to give people a paycheck, 5 during April break to give people a paycheck, and then 5 additional holidays determined by the administration, kind of dependent on, how the schedule falls that year. And last time that we bargained, the district provided some comparisons from other towns in the valley. And just to highlight a couple of them, Bellingham was one that the district highlighted where their pay is pretty low. They only have 15, 14 per hour to start. But in that contract, they get 12 paid holidays. And then on top of that, they can earn up to 4 weeks of paid vacation, even as a school year worker. So they have 32 and a half days, potentially, of paid vacation in that district, between the holidays and the pay. Blackstone Regional, similarly, they can earn up to 3 weeks of vacation, and then they have 11 holidays. So they're getting up to 26 sort of paid benefit days separate. So if we can't come to an agreement on an annualized pay rate, giving people holidays that sort of automatically get used on break periods is a way to honor people's service and to get them a paycheck when otherwise they would be hit really hard.
So, for instance, I went through my paychecks. I'm missing one paycheck, so I have 16 paychecks, and I went through my 16 paychecks. 5 of those paychecks are a little over 70 hours. Could be bus coverage for someone, could be faculty meeting, could be anything. 11 of my paychecks are considerably under the 70 hours. I think the highest one I had was 61 hours. And my regular weekly paycheck would normally be 70. And there were 11 of them. So just to put it into context for you.
That's really, again, whether through annualizing or through adding holidays, that's what we're trying to address. We're trying to make sure that people in this unit don't get paychecks that are almost nothing, or sometimes even nothing, where it's just health insurance and then $10, $12, $30. That doesn't pay the bills. Moving forward from there, the district proposed restricting personal days further. We're rejecting that. The district proposed increasing longevity by $100 per level. We're holding on that pending wage discussions, and the super step idea the district had brought up. We previously responded for substitution, and for the idea of an official transcript from a college, we're again just holding that pending the wage discussion. And those are our counters for today.
Yeah, Scott, thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, put a lot of work in, so thank you for doing that. So if we could caucus, though, that would be great.
Prior to the wage response?
Yeah, we'll come back.
Okay.
One of us will be in touch, right?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
text.
Oh yeah, we have the door open. Yep. Okay.
Go ahead.
Welcome back. Before we hand out a couple of documents, and Greg speaks to it, just want to say that what we're about to hand out, we feel is an aggressive proposal. I think we've tried to capture a lot of what you've spoken to us about over not only the past 2-3 months, but what we've discussed over the past 2-3 years. Our hope in presenting this to you is for us to hopefully get a deal done before the end of the school year. We want to see our paras and our applied behavior analysts go home with at least an MOA as we go forward. Jonna, you and I have worked together for the past 3-4 years on this. You know that when you bring things to our attention, we address it. Do we always agree on things? No, but I don't think you can always have.
Can't always agree.
You can't always bat 1,000. But when we've sat and we've talked and we've worked on things, we've been able to iron things out. And negotiations are what negotiations are. But long after negotiations are over, relationships need to be there. I think we've all developed those relationships, not without bumps in the road, not without some things, but I think you know how we value our paras and our ABAs. Again, we've had our issues with it, not without any relationship. Moms and dads with their kids, husbands and wives, whatever the dynamic is. And we want to present, and I'll have Greg go over the various components of it, we want to present what we feel is a fair and aggressive offer to you, for you to see the district's intent to try to resolve a lot of the issues that you've brought to our attention, to try to put things in the contract to help support you and do it, to help with some financial impact. I know James said he's curious to see our financial counter, and we have that. But just to look at everything and let you know that we value you, we've heard you, and what you've said to us is important. And there's many things that you've brought to our attention during negotiations and even during the school year that we've said, you know what, you're absolutely correct, and we've implemented them. So with that said, I'm going to hand this out, and
Yeah, and I'll go through it. So, a couple of things. So first, this is a package proposal. So for those unfamiliar, a package proposal is an all or nothing kind of entity. Either you accept the package as it stands, or you reject it as it stands, okay? The other thing I want to note is this package proposal, admittedly, was put together before we got to hear what you guys had said in terms of responses. So, and Paul, I think, just alluded to this. We valued the discussion, that we've had, the things that you guys have said to us, wanted to put thought into sort of responding to that. But we're only able to do that with the benefit of the discussions that we had, so we couldn't incorporate things that we talked about 10 minutes ago, into this. So just understand that, for example, sick leave bank, right? You had some amendments to the sick leave bank that we may want to still consider, but things like that aren't going to be incorporated into this, right? So things that you guys had talked about.
Did you make any modifications to this in caucus?
No, right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Is we didn't have the chance to, right?
So why did you ask us to provide full responses when you already had a take it or leave it package deal prepared at the beginning of this session?
Because we wanted to hear what those responses were to inform the discussion. And you guys had said you were going to have those responses for us.
Right, but it didn't inform a discussion. We just talked for an hour and you just gave us the same document that was ready an hour ago.
That's correct.
Great. Ready to hear it.
I don't know. James, you seem upset by that, and I'm not sure why.
Well-
No, I'm not looking for...
No, I think I
to
should
get
clarify because I think it's important to kind of put that out here. If you are interested in having a full ongoing discussion,
I think you've
I
shown
could
that we
have,
have.
I could have seen, modifying this, but it just feels disingenuous to discuss for an hour and then not modify what's already been prepared, because then the only way that we can continue the discussion is just to flat out reject your package, which is fine. I don't know what's in it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, so right there,
I wish
James,
it
right,
could
that's
go
like,
backwards.
that's not great, right? To say like you haven't even had a chance to see what's in here and
Right.
you're already bumping up against it, right?
Right.
You're also disregarding the time part of this, right? We were trying to be mindful of the time. Again, as I noted before, we wanted to be able to discuss and take into consideration things that you said, but wouldn't have the time to go in and amend it. So I really don't think that's fair for you to come out, get on your soapbox, and basically attack us for putting a lot of thought into something to be able to provide to your side. I don't think that's fair at all.
Let's just review this and move on at this moment and let it go.
Sounds great, Jonna. I'll quiet myself.
Thank you, John. Reasonable minds are prevailing.
I
So,
don't know about
package
that,
proposal.
but we'll go with it.
Okay, so what we've done here, oh, and I should mention one other thing that I just wanted to put out there, because we also in the caucus had talked a bit about some of the points that you guys were making with respect to health and safety specifically. And would be open in the discussion of this package to talking about some kind of process in the contract that we, along the lines of what we've been talking about, not necessarily the output, but yes, process. So that's like another thing that we would be willing to continue to discuss. So want you to understand that that's something that we, hear as well. So for the package proposal, you'll see that a number of these things are things that were already discussed or proposed by the union. We've got some updated language to a number of things throughout, but we're including a whole number of things, and then we also have a wage proposal at the end to talk about as well. So one, I'm going to try to go through this not word for word to save time, but so one is staff members will be immediately report in writing to the building principal, administrator, or nurse when they are injured in the course of their work. So this goes back to the proposal regarding a process for reporting, and then an injured staff member will seek appropriate medical attention from the school nurse or other medical professionals as soon as possible. So we would include this. Two, that the identification of building representatives will be furnished to the employer immediately after the designation, and the association will notify the employer of any changes. Investigations of grievance shall occur outside the school day hours. And then the formal structural language that we had talked about and had been proposed before, we would include that in the package as well. Three, other language that had been proposed: should an injured staff member require immediate medical attention as a result of being injured at work, beyond what's available by the school nurse, they shall be given immediate release time without reduction in their pay or the accrued sick time for that day. Four is the language that we had proposed before on the reimbursement. So an example of one where I think you guys had some modified language, but we're including, what's that?
We can blend it.
Yeah,
We'll look at- yep.
but we're including what we had last proposed on this issue. Five, same kind of concept for the PPE, what we had proposed regarding the addressing of PPE and how it would be provided. Six, regular hours for full-time and school year unit staff. That was an amendment that we had discussed last time, that just a clarification of language, but it would be for full-time and school year unit, 7 hours per day, inclusive of a paid 30-minute lunch period. Seven is the accrual of 15 days of sick leave, and a sick day will be considered an absence by an employee for his or her regular working shift within a 24-hour period.
And just for clarification, DESPA members of the union currently get 10. I think your original request was for 15, so that's represented there.
8, so that it goes on through the next 2 pages, is the sick leave bank proposal. This is what I just had highlighted before. So it's what we had proposed, don't have the benefit yet of thinking more on what you guys had provided. But there is to see an update that for the purposes of starting the sick bank, members of DESPA may donate per their discretion up to 5 days each for the 24-25 school year. You'll see D, there was just a scratching out DESPA members, and that'll be new members. And then throughout is replacing the SLB committee with association, which I think we discussed last time. 9 is substitution for a teacher. We had talked a little bit about this last time too. We have an updated counter for inclusion in this package proposal. If a member of DESPA is directed by a member of administration to cover/substitute for a teacher, and they cover for a minimum of 2 hours per day, they'll be compensated an additional $5.71 per hour.
So the language in red here is your official proposal for the package?
Yes, exactly right, thank you. Including the the integration of the prior agreement in terms of the members receiving personal days as follows: 1 personal day effective October 1, and 2 additional personal days effective January 1 of the school year. 3 is the inclusion of other language that we talked about regarding unit members having access to stipend positions. So this is one where you guys had an update for us, and we are including what we had discussed and proposed before.
Sorry, so for,
Yep.
this is in number 11, the language there is your language in the package,
Correct.
so we can get rid of this.
And that's just the history there, yeah. where we
Okay,
were, yeah.
so
Yeah.
the language in 11 is your proposal, the notes are just notes. The school committee response notes are just notes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. 12, the identification of building representatives will be furnished to the employer immediately after their designation, and the association will notify the employer of any changes. Investigations of grievances shall occur outside the school day hours. Second paragraph, you're going to recognize this was the counter that we had made last time, and it's the inclusion of that same language.
Where the superintendent and DESPA meeting is as necessary, but in the buildings, it's regularly scheduled.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
13, the union president and duly elected representatives will be granted up to 1 day of paid leave per year to attend meetings of the MTA. 14, prior to the end of each school year, every employee shall be provided a status notice which contains the member's expected step and rate of pay and the expected assignment. So that's another one that where it was our last proposal on that language piece. Same with 15, again, another example of something we had talked about before, but we included our prior language, February 1 to May 1. And then B.
So that's the same thing, the notes are just there for a note, 15 is the proposal.
Correct.
Okay.
And then there's the qualified and certified applicants that we had talked about, including that language on B.
All right.
16, each school year will consist of 180 student days as amended by DESI, plus any PD days pursuant to the DTA contract. And it includes the new language in the next paragraph that we had included for 318, the training and professional development, provided for the paras and ABAs, given at least 2 weeks' notice when feasible. Yep. Oh, sorry.
I have a quick question. We are talking about the training and professional development all being the week preceding the start of school. What happens with staff that's hired in the middle of the school year? What's going to happen with them? If we, because I generally think that we start the school year a little bit short. We haven't hired anyone yet. What happens with training with them? That's a concern too.
Yeah. I don't want to just throw this back at you, but if you have a counter in terms of an idea on
Got
that,
it.
you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be flippant saying that to you, but.
Yep.
Yep. 17, the paid holidays, so we're sticking with the 3 that we had proposed. 18 is the personal leave time benefit, and again, sticking to what was discussed and proposed previously, including, as you'll see on the next page, the inclusion of the language in red, that holidays or vacations are first or last week of any school year, or before or after long weekends or professional development days.
So you have in here that days will be accumulated at 0.6 days per,
What number are you on, James?
number 18 on the
Bottom
bottom.
of page 5, right?
We TA'd
You're right.
different language.
Yep, yep.
Yep, you're right.
Good catch.
Okay, so you're not proposing to change it as part
No,
of the
no, no,
package?
yeah.
Yep.
No,
Okay.
we would keep that TA, thank you.
So you want the TA of 1 and then 2 days, but then you also want your long weekend stipulation?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Welcome, yeah. And so just for everybody following at home or in general, like, package is a deal, as Greg mentioned, with an attempt to reach a settlement. So the package may have positions which are slightly different from the overall TAs in order to try to reach that settlement, which is why I'm trying to be very clear about where the notations are for regular or not. So this one, we keep the TA, but then we add the long weekends piece.
And just to sort of dovetail with that, James, the reason we're doing the package proposal is to try to sort of, I think Paul had mentioned this, but if he didn't, to sort of accelerate the discussion here of trying to get to a deal. I mean, that's really the reason that we're putting a package proposal as opposed to kind of the kind of bargaining that we've been doing before. So I think Paul may have mentioned that, but I couldn't remember.
He did, yep.
Okay, so 19, wage schedule, we talked about the associates and the masters, we're gonna come back to more salary in a second, we have the longevity that's already in there, and then the time increments on 20,
Sorry, the longevity again, that's the addition of the 100, so the 357 and the 1050 should be struck out, and then the 458 and the 1150
yeah,
are new.
I don't know how, yep, 450, 800, and 1150.
Okay,
Right.
it's not proposing double longevity for
No.
people.
It is not.
Okay, time increments. We have the updated counter there at the bottom, that if a member of DESPA is directed by a member of administration to cover/substitute for a teacher, and they cover for a minimum of 2 hours per day, they'll be compensated an additional $5.71 per hour, so what you saw previously. And then I'm going to hand it over to Paul to talk more about just the wage component of this package proposal.
Sure.
Yeah. Doesn't work. Thank you. Yeah. It's in user. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And then, just a moment ago in the conversation, before the caucus, we were talking about this reporting sheet. Is the district interested in having bargaining discussions over that form and that process? Was that what you were referring to earlier, or is that a separate thing?
I wasn't specifically referring to that form. That was a
I was
close,
triple.
that was a close one.
We almost lost Heather.
Yeah.
You almost got unplugged.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So let me try to go over this with you, and if you have questions, please ask. Really, what has been added is what you see highlighted in yellow. So in our previous proposal on May 8th, we had 4 steps and a super step. We've added a step 5 and then a super step to take place in step 10. So going from, in essence, 5 steps to 6 steps. The other thing that we did here is we did a rate adjustment in steps 3 through 6. So if you look at your other proposal, you can see that it is a 2.25% increase from step 1 to step 2. And then in steps 3, 4, 5, and 6, we did a substantive increase from where we were in previous, in our original proposal. Our original proposal came in, and I know, James, you want to talk about this in dollar amounts, but I'm just going to discuss this in percentages. And we fully understand the why, but in our original proposal on May 8th, we came in with an 11.46 in year 1, a 3.55 in year 2, and a 3.39 in year 3, for an overall package of 18.4% plus the 3 additional days. This counter that we came forward represents an increase in year 1 from 11.46 to 14.36, so almost 3%. An increase in FY '26 from 3.55 to 4.37, and oddly enough, in year 4, a 3.39 to 3.21, for an overall 3-year total of 21.94% increase. So almost a 2.5% increase from our original proposal here. Those of you who've been in town a lot longer than I know that our paras and our applied behavior analysts lived in a world of 1%, 2%, 0.5%, 0% for decades. This proposal of 22%, almost 22% over 3 years, plus what we came out of the gate by adding 3 paid holidays, and we came out of the gate by adding an increase in what we compensated people for covering dates, for covering classes, is unprecedented, I think, here in Douglas. I think shows our commitment to our paras and our applied behavioral analysts from the town, from the school committee, and from members of the leadership team for it. Again, you lived in a world of nickels and 1% and 2%, and this package here is almost a 22 or 21.94% increase over 3 years.
So that translates out to, as far as real dollars, right, is that a non-degree paraprofessional in the district for 10 years or more, instead of making their current like 23-ish thousand, will be getting up to about $27,000 per year,
So,
27 and a half.
so this year, again, I have it hourly, so I don't know if I'm gonna trust your math, but.
Yeah.
Right now, a non-degreed para is making $16.32 an hour.
Yep.
In this proposal, a top step non-degreed para would be making $19.95, so over a 20% increase
Yeah.
from 24 to 25.
Right, right. And in real-world money, and what it means in their net pay, that means that someone will be going up to $27,500 a year by 2027. And then at the top of the scale, someone who's an ABA with a bachelor's or a master's degree will be making $36,000 a year.
So yeah, they're currently making $24.73 an hour. In our proposal for FY '25 would bring them to $28.44 an hour.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, roughly a 20% increase.
Yes, and that means that by, again, within 3 years, by fiscal year '27, a non-degree paraprofessional will be making almost exactly half of what a first-year teacher would be making next year in Douglas. Because by FY '27, a non-degree para with 10 years or more will be making $27K, and teachers will be starting at least $52K. So I appreciate what you're saying about the percentages, and you're right, the percentage increases are large, which is also why we started by talking about what this actually looks like overall. The top step ABA with a bachelor's degree and more than 10 years is very close to what we were hoping to get in this. We said that we wanted to get everybody over 40K. The non-degree paraprofessional, of course, is still about $13,000 a year shy by FY '23. I don't have any other questions about this. I'm just sort of noticing that.
And again, I think if you have on your first sheet that we handed out, we did the comparison rate for the Blackstone Valley, and
Yeah, what were you trying to highlight with that? I was. a
sure,
little confused by
absolutely.
that.
Our goal has always been to have people competitive with what's happening in the valley.
Yeah.
So put people in the middle of the valley. Your proposal that you came out of the gate would make our paras and our applied behavior analysts the highest paid in the valley.
I don't think that's true. How do you figure that?
So if you look at FY '24 rates of paraprofessional non-degrees,
Yep.
for FY '24, the highest paid is $17.49 an hour. Your proposal was $20.20. So, I'm sorry, I was off, $17.50.
I had to do my due
Sonny always
diligence
beats
to
you
point
by a
out
penny.
that.
Yeah, Sunny always beats us by, so $17.50. So again, absent of having Sutton's proposal, Sutton would have to go up 20% for Douglas not to be the highest paid per your proposal.
I don't, maybe I'm missing something here, but your proposal has a non-degree para starting at $16.75 next year, which isn't even the top of the FY '24 list, so I'm not quite sure what you're saying.
I'm saying it puts us in the middle, makes us competitive in the valley.
Right, but it's not the best paid.
Correct.
I thought that you had said the best paid
No,
originally.
no, your proposal.
Yeah, your proposal.
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
that is what we're
Your
trying to
proposal
figure
made,
out,
made
yes.
you the highest paid in the valley.
Yes, that's correct, okay,
Yeah,
sure.
and our proposal makes us competitive in the valley. Right now, to your point, and is everyone's point, if we're not last, we're second to last. And our proposal's to get people closer to, that we propose, gets people closer to the middle. Which represents a 22% increase over 3 years, which is unprecedented here in Douglas.
Okay. And again, this is only based on hourly rate, right? This isn't based on total annual compensation. It doesn't include like the Bellingham's extra
It does not.
24 weeks of vacation.
Pure hourly
or
rate.
that stuff. Okay.
Correct.
You have any questions? You guys have any questions?
No, I'm processing.
Yep.
It's a lot, I know.
Yep.
I'll send this to you in a PDF too. I mean, yeah,
Excel sheet would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know
save
what
me
I
some
meant,
time.
yeah.
All right. So, I mean, team, disagree with me if you'd like, but I don't think that we're gonna be able to come back from a caucus with anything substantive today.
Nope,
No?
no, absolutely not.
Yep. And I think that we have our next proposal, our next session scheduled for...
and as Greg pointed out, just to reiterate, after we win in caucus, and it's not represented here, we're willing to look at some language that outlines a process. So,
Yeah, so I mean, as you've presented it, you know, the only options for a take it or leave it package are take it or leave it. So I think I can speak for the team where I'll say that we'll leave it and we'll come back with some sort of response, but it's appreciative that you're interested on working on things beyond that. So that's not a formal response,
Okay, I
but,
just
you
wanna
know,
make sure.
considering the fact that you've, again, already said that there's more things to be discussed, there's gonna have to be some modifications in there somewhere. So, the 4th at, I have it at 5 PM?
correct.
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
And then the 13th at 4.
13th at 4, yep.
Yep, good.
All right, then I think that we're set, and unless you guys have more, Julie and Heather get to do their thing.
I think we can, should I make a motion to adjourn, Heather?
Yes, you do, Julie, and I second it.
All right, all in favor,
Roll call
Julia?
vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Hi, Heather.